You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts.
All right, Black and White Sports supporters. Well, since the Dianna Russini fiasco started, we haven't really heard much of anything from Dianna Russini at all. This is the oddest article ever because the New York Times owns The Athletic, of which Dianna Russini had previously worked for, was an NFL inside her. Well, we finally got some comments. As part of this New York Times article, Dianna Russini actually made some comments. We also found out how much she was getting paid. She getting paid how much to Mike Vrabel? Really? Wow. Okay. Interesting. Paying good money these days, I guess. This is Florio, I think, on both of these articles. Yeah. Dianna Russini had said nothing since abruptly resigning from The Athletic in April, 1 week after the photos first surfaced of Russini and Patriots coach Mike Vrabel at a resort in Sedona, Arizona. Portions of a text message sent to a New York Times reporter in May appear in a new article about the controversy, even though she apparently tries to categorize the remarks as, quote, off the record. Well, if you didn't come to an agreement prior to starting the conversation about it being off the record, it's going to be on the record. I'm just letting you know. I thought she was a journalist or an inside her. From the Times story, the reporter contacted Russini in early May to request an interview for the story. Russini, per the report, cited, quote, intense scrutiny and personal attacks that she had endured. She said, quote, this has had a significant impact on my life, both professionally and personally. Well, I mean, look, an ongoing at least 6-year affair? I'm sure it did. She also referred to herself as, quote, a former journalist before asking the reporter to not quote from the text message. From the Times report, quote, when the reporter told her that this article would include portions of her text message because no agreement had been made for them to engage in off-the-record correspondence, Ms. Russini objected and then emailed Mr. Perpich, the publisher of The Athletic, as well as 2 senior editors at the time, to reiterate her wish that her comments not be included. The New York Times owns and operates The Athletic. Obviously, the quotes were used, and the quotes were fair game. Off-the-record communications require an agreement between the reporter and the subject of the interview. Plenty of individuals have spoken freely to reporters without realizing everything is on the record, unless there's an agreement in advance to treat the information differently. Reporters know or should know the rules of engagement. It's not enough to prepare a response and blurt out off the record at the end of it. Yeah, you can't do that. It's too little too late. I'm sure it did cause significant damage. I still, before we get to the salary, I still would love to know what was the agreement between Mike Vrabel and his actual wife. Because I've contended that they've had some kind of open arrangement where he gets free reign, but probably where all the drama comes in is any of his on the sides situations are not supposed to come out and go public because obviously there's kids involved and there's embarrassment to the family. So I would love to know, and nobody knows that. Nobody knows if there was an arrangement between Vrabel and his wife or any of that, but I have speculated and suspected that there may be, right? In other words, his wife is going, I'm living a great lifestyle. Go do what the hell you want to do. And believe it or not, there are plenty of women out there like that. Dianna Russini and The Athletic were discussing an extension to her $800,000 annual deal. When Dianna Russini left ESPN for The Athletic, Peter King wrote that, quote, she immediately becomes one of the highest paid writers in the history of the August New York Times Company. Wednesday's article in the New York Times regarding the circumstances that led to her resignation and aftermath supplies the specific numbers. Quote, The Athletic paid her an annual salary close to $800,000, according to a former manager who had knowledge of her salary negotiation, the Times reported. This would have made her one of the highest paid journalists at the Times Company. The Times article adds, at the time the story regarding Russini's relationship with Vrabel broke, The Athletic was in discussions with Miss Russini about renewing her contract, which was set to expire at the end of June. King wrote in 2023 that The Athletic hired Russini, quote, to be a subscription magnet. Ultimately, she became a lightning rod both externally and internally. An internal investigation conducted by The Athletic continues despite her resignation because of lingering tension with the Times Company, tracing to the acquisition of The Athletic and scrapping the in-house sports reporting apparatus. Yeah, see, that's the other thing. Even though the Times owns The Athletic, when the Times bought The Athletic, they disintegrated the New York Times sports section. So all those reporters with the New York Times got themselves a bit of a vendetta themselves because they knew the sports people and yada, yada, yada. So it's pretty interesting that now you got the New York Times going after somebody that worked for The Athletic, that something went down while they were still with The Athletic. And there's still an investigation ongoing by The Athletic. And what's going to be interesting is if they release this investigation and we find out the New York Times after the fact goes, oh, wait a minute, that's not all they found. This is also what was discovered, but The Athletic didn't report it. Are they going to be willing? Is the parent company going to tell on the smaller company? Devastated. I will say this. I think there was more damage done to the personal life of Dianna Russini than there was Mike Vrabel. Because at this point, Vrabel's back to being Vrabel with the Patriots. Now, only two things will disrupt that. Dianna Russini doing a tell-all, and there's a lot of speculation that a lot of the NFL, the rest of the NFL, is nervous as hell about that because of, I guess, other people that could be involved here. Now, I don't know about with her, but maybe with other female journalists and other coaches and other personnel people, etc., across the league. Like there is this ongoing secret across the league. I've seen in a couple of places in the last month, there are people very concerned about that. The other is her doing a tell-all interview right before the season starts, which is going to add a lot of drama to Mike Vrabel. And if the Patriots were to randomly suck this year, and I don't think they're going to, I think they're going to be at least a 10-win team, but let's say they're not. Let's say we look up towards the end of the year and maybe they've only got 2-3 weeks left. They only got 5 wins. That is going to get very interesting. There will start being major heat put on Vrabel through the Boston media and probably the national media. How much did this affect his coaching performance if they were to have a bad year. Tell me what you think. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.